Now to inspect the cells on a battery, the only way you can do that is if you have a battery that has removable cell caps. So this one here, it does have removable cell caps. You just pry them up with a screwdriver and you're able to remove them. And once the cell caps are removed, what you're going to do is you're going to, and I showed you this in another video as well, you're going to look down inside there and you're going to look to see if there is battery acid that comes all the way up to the bottom of the plastic. And you need to make sure that all the cells are looking the same and that you don't see any white corrosion down inside there. So that's what you're looking for when you inspect your battery cells. You need to be careful. You notice there's a bunch of dirt and grime around here. You need to be careful not to knock that down inside the battery. There is ways to clean that, but not while the battery cells are exposed. So once you've inspected the battery cells, what you need to do is put your caps back on. Make sure you snap them down tight. And once they're on and they're snapped down tight, now what you can do is you can inspect and clean your battery terminals. So when you take the battery terminals off, you always want to disconnect the negative first. So I'm going to pop the negative battery cable off. The reason, you probably learned this in your 110 class, but the reason you always take the negative cable off first is because that is the ground and you have less chance of sparking. When a battery charges or discharges, it generates hydrogen gas, which is very explosive, and you want to minimize the chances of causing a battery to explode, and so you always disconnect the negative first. So what we're going to do now is we've disconnected the battery terminals. We've already installed the battery saver, and we're going to inspect the terminals. And if you look at these terminals here, you see that there's a little bit of corrosion going on right down here where my thumb is. Let me see if I can get that back in frame. So there we go. I can get it up here like this. So you see that little corrosion right there? That is an evidence of the terminals that need to be cleaned. Now on these side post terminals, a lot of times to clean them properly, you need to pull the housings back away from the cable itself. And so you can do that just by moving the rubber. And then you can just use any old wire brush to clean those. But they actually do have a tool that looks just like this. This is to clean the battery side of the terminal, and this is to clean the cable side. And so using a wire brush, I'm going to clean all that battery corrosion off from these cables, and I'll show you what it looks like when they're all cleaned up. So after a lot of elbow grease and scraping and brushing with a little wire brush, I got that terminal all nice and clean, so it's all nice and bright and looks coppery now. What you want to do is you want to do that with all of the terminals that are left on your battery to make sure that every terminal that you have is nice and clean before you put it back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then when I get ready to put it back together, I'll bring you back. So I have all the terminals clean now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some dielectric grease on the terminals. And what that does, that kind of helps keep the corrosion from building up on your terminals. And basically all it is just a silicone grease that you put on the terminals to keep them nice and fresh. So it's a little bit of silicone grease, and you put them inside and on the terminals. And then I'm going to make sure that they're coated everywhere. So my battery died on my other camera, so I had to switch cameras here. So hopefully this one will last until I'm finished. So basically what I did, what you might have missed, is I put the dielectric grease on the terminal, connected the terminal back up on the battery, and I'm doing the same thing on the negative battery. So hook up the negative side And there you go. And there's what you need to do to inspect the terminals on a battery.